Straight to our guest. Next to me is Patrick Gathara. He is a cartoonist and columnist, and as well as a curator at The Elephant. You should check it out online. A lot of good discussion going on there. He's actually giving me a run for my money. Thank you for that. Next to him is Victor Bwire. He is a programs manager at the Media Council of Kenya. Also quite a thorn in the flesh for us media folk, telling us where we go wrong, and that's why we have him on tonight. And right next to him, that is Macharia Gaitho. For now, I'll introduce him as a veteran journalist. We'll get to what I've been talking about before we started the show. Now, this afternoon, most of my colleagues and I converge at the third floor of this building, Nation Center, to receive the news that the Chief Executive Officer, and that is Joseph Muganda, will be leaving the company following his resignation. In a letter sent out immediately, Chairman of NMG, Wilfred Kiboro, said the corporate leadership changes are normal, adding that the transition will be seamless. Outgoing CEO Muganda will be leaving at the end of January 2018 after 2.5 years at NMG, and will be heading to Vivo Energy, the oil marketer, as managing director starting February 1st. That gentleman right there is Stephen Gitagama, the group finance director, and will replace Muganda in an acting capacity as the board looks for a substantive replacement. And I just want to start this by wishing all the very best to Joe Muganda as he heads out to his new assignment, as well to the acting CEO, Bwana Gitagama, and the next person who will be as well sought out by the board. And this is how you make sure that you are a favorite with the CEO. Whoever you are, wish you the best as you come here. But someone here actually seriously do wish Bwana Joe Muganda all the best. Now, some people are giving their reactions already, and this is actually someone who was meant to be on the show today, and she kind of ducked my emails. This is Nanjala Nyabola, and she says, I hope for NMG's sake that they appoint an actual journalist to head up the company, revive the newspaper through commitment to producing quality content, not getting government money. Now, let me ask Macharia Gaitho whether he's been dusting up his resume, and this is something that's open to you. You are a veteran journalist. What do you make out of this comment? First of all, I mean, would you be interested?
I have a 2-page CV. I need to pad it up to 84 pages or something, and then I will see.
Yes.
CEO is not my kind of thing. I think there are people who are suited to pushing paper and counting money and those kind of things. It's not for me. And
let's speak to that, by the way. And there's a reason. I mean, I'm joking asking you. I know you would prefer to be behind the scenes. But on a serious note, as what is brought up by Nanjala here, is it important to have someone who's an actual journalist for this job? You've just said it. Someone who can push paper, make the money, for this kind of job.
Not necessarily. I think what matters is somebody who can understand the media industry, not necessarily a journalist. If it is a journalist, well and good, because he will have an inborn understanding. But even if it's an outsider, so to speak, it should be somebody who is able to adapt and who can understand and who can learn the industry. And I felt that with Joe Muganda, he never quite learned this industry.
It probably was too early. I mean, it was 2.5 years.
Well, obviously, he has left prematurely.
Yeah.
I mean, 2.5 years. He obviously left prematurely. But I think he did not. He was not able to work out that producing content and selling content is definitely not the same as selling beer or brewing beer. Right. Or cigarettes.
Let's be careful here. He's still my CEO, and we have nothing against him. Bwana Victor Bwire, your comment to this, I mean, the importance of having someone leading such an organization, the biggest in East and Central Africa. I was bragging to Patrick earlier.
We wish Joe well, wherever he's going.
Yes.
That's a personal decision, maybe. Well, I'll support Macharia's thinking that either journalists or somebody who understands the media industry. Running a media industry does not necessarily require the same skills of a CEO to run any other company. And that has seen our media struggling so much, simply because the people who are brought either take too long to understand the product or largely fail. We have seen even other areas where journalists were given those responsibilities in other companies and they ran the companies down. So it might not necessarily be a journalist, but somebody who can quickly understand that the media product is different from others is a public good-oriented enterprise. It sometimes requires investment without returns. But if you are going to get a CEO who largely looks at money, how much money he'll get to declare profits to the board, then again, we will miss it.
Right, but being on the practical side, you have salaries to pay, you have budgets and what have you, the targets basically from different departments. Gathara, it's understandable that our focus has a lot been on the commercial side, but something else that's brought up in this comment by Nanjala is that, let's have quality content. Perhaps that in and of itself will draw commercial interest by having the quality journalism.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the media, in essence, has yet to formulate and create a business model that will allow them to deliver proper content and make money off doing that. I think lots of how they have run it, it's been run, has been too, in a sense, commercialized. I think they have lost their audiences, and they've lost the idea that actually it's the audiences that matter, and if you keep them coming back, then you can make money off it. And then secondly, they've got to realize that there's a public duty on them, because the space on which they're making money was generated and created by sacrifices that Kenyans made. It's actually the only industry that's protected specifically in our constitution. So I think that taking that on board will be very important, I think, for whoever else comes in. But I'll say one other thing. I think it's not necessarily a good thing to have a journalist per se running the media house. And the reason I say this is one of the really disturbing trends we've seen in Kenyan media has been this thing where we take journalists out of the newsroom and put them into boardrooms. And what that does is it robs the newsroom of experience, of continuity, of institutional memory. And now we are having very young people coming straight out of college, and becoming, anchors.
How do we get a chance to this? I know you're
yeah, but
how
the
do we
thing
get a
is,
chance
there's
in
no
the industry?
mentoring.
Right.
And because there's no mentoring, then the quality of what comes out becomes much degraded. I think it's much better to keep our journalists within newsrooms. The second thing is the journalists are not necessarily good at running businesses. They're good at being journalists, so let them be journalists. Don't just ship them across and then assume
and expect some
that because you can write the news, you think I can run a news business. No, I don't think that's the same thing.
Mukapa was a journalist, was a president, so.
Well, I mean,
so we can't say journalists cannot necessarily.
I think being a president,
you have many people under you to help you as well.
Yeah.
Right. But the bottom line of this is, we're looking forward to new leadership, and as well as wishing the best to Joe Mganda, who has been here for 2.5 years, actually came here after Linus Gitahi, who was here for about 10 years actually, and Macharia Gaitho worked a lot under him. He didn't have a background in journalism, but he still did well.
No, he didn't have a background in journalism, neither did Wilfred Kiporo.
Yes.
And even the previous CEOs, and I think that they did fairly well because they took time to understand the uniqueness of running a media enterprise and also its public interest focus, which really is key. And I think the mistake we're making a lot with the media these days is that we are forgetting that content is produced by people, by creatives.
Right.
So we are moving very much towards cutting costs by getting rid of people, and with a shift to digital media. But we forget that even that digital content cannot be digitalized.
Yes.
It cannot be created by computers. It is created by individuals. And there is no substitute for that. There is no mechanization of creativity.
Okay.
And I think we really have to think, even as we go digital, that is the way. We really have to think that even that content must still be produced by damn good journalists.
Yeah, and I think also, if I may quickly say something, I think we really have to think as media houses about the models that we have. if you're publishing news in a newspaper and selling the newspaper and then giving away the content for free online, most people will go and get the free content online
yes,
and not bother buying the paper. So we really have to rethink this, and you can see around the world, papers are moving away. Some are going into subscriptions more than simply relying on advertising, and starting to put in firewalls, requiring people, to pay something. And I think even for the public.
But are we there yet as our audience?
Well, I think the public itself has to come to an understanding that if it wants good content, they will have to pay for it. Somebody will have to pay for it,
right,
and we shouldn't be averse to it. The only problem we have at the moment is that the newspapers aren't actually producing good content. And I think if they focused on that, then it might be much easier for them to monetize that, for them to require people to pay something to actually view it.
The same content that included your cartoons and your columns.
Exactly. Well, I say my cartoons were an exception, but
as you close on this issue.
One, the business model, when we are running purely news as a product for sale, and that's how our current way of doing business is we are looking news purely as a product for sale.
Right.
And we have forgotten the public value in it. And every time you want to send a reporter, you say, how much will that get? That's how we are losing it. And there are models. On Saturday, we had a big conference about media viability and the current models. And one of your own editors here, David Aduda, has done a study on his MBA on business models of running newsrooms.
Right.
A very nice publication where it suggests how models that can work in the current. But we are stuck, like Gathara is saying, we are stuck. We want to go and cover elections. Nation takes 100 reporters, Standard takes 100, instead of combining and get, there are things we can do joint. How many times do we get feeds from KBC when it's Parliament, and we get feeds? Why can't that happen? But you see a lot of duplication. We're still stuck in that competition that sometimes doesn't help. So we must reevaluate how we are going to, to run businesses in a changing world. We can't use the same models that we were using before.
All right. Thank you for your thoughts on this particular point. Again, we wish the best to Bwana Joe Mganda as he heads out to Vivo Energy as Managing Director, but still is here as a CEO till the end of January. I have to make that clear. He's still my boss. Anyway, to another issue that attached on our very own organization, the Director of Criminal Investigations on Monday summoned NTV anchor Larry Madowo to record a statement over a live interview with Dr. David Ndii on 22nd August. Before actually you run this picture, this is actually a package that I'd like us to run to the director. The letter addressed to the CEO of the Nation Media Group says the DCI is investigating a case of incitement to violence against the NASA strategist. The group's legal team, that is NMG, has said that neither Larry nor NTV will record a statement. Let's get the context of this.
The DCI letter summoning NTV's Larry Madowo is signed by Ndii for the Director of Criminal Investigations. It asks the CEO of the Nation Media Group to avail the news anchor to assist on the investigation and henceforth record a statement.
But for somebody like you in your position...
It refers to this interview with the head of NASA's technical committee, the economist David Ndii, where he talks about parts of Kenya seceding.
It's political discourse. Politics of separatism are fairly normal. Britain has just had, first of all, the Scottish referendum and then Brexit. Canada has a sort of perennial question of Quebecois separatism.
The interview was broadcast live on the 22nd of August 2017 on primetime, but the letter from the DCI is dated 5th of December 2016, over 8 months before it took place. Ndii was arrested on Sunday night at a hotel in Diani, Kwale County, while attending a wedding with his family. He was driven overnight to Nairobi, where he was charged with incitement to violence and released on bond. In his Saturday Nation column on the 26th of March 2016, he had called Kenya a cruel marriage and suggested that it was time to talk divorce.
This is a country which has fought about these issues long before I wrote this. Okay? It is a country whose leaders have been taken to the ICC for this ethnic sort of conflict. So this is, if you look at the standards by which we do these things, I think trying to make a big hullabaloo about fairly open, sort of civil conversation about things people feel very strongly about is again being dishonest, I think.
The Nation Media Group says neither Larry nor NTV will record a statement. In declining to appear, NMG says the DCI's request is unethical as journalists cannot testify against news sources. The DCI accuses Ndii of incitement to violence and subversive activities contrary to several sections of the Penal Code. When he appeared on NTV, Ndii said that Kenyans must have electoral justice.
Any society where avenues of legitimate political dissent are closed inevitably ends up with people taking arms. People do not accept subjugation forever. I do not know any society that even slaves used to have uprisings, even though they were property, not supposed to be people. So again, this idea of trying to frighten people into not discussing uncomfortable political things by saying that you are inciting people doesn't help.
The NASA strategist is currently out on police bond as investigations continue. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
TV anchor Larry Madowo to record a statement over a live interview with the economist David Ndii, and NMG's legal team has said that neither Larry nor the team here will record a statement to this effect. To this decision, I'll start with you, Victor Bwire. Do you support this, and what can you say to the DCI?
I think from all the journalist laws and codes that I've ever looked at, the least that journalists can do is to reveal their source, or for this reason, to give evidence against their source. And I think this should be, an obvious thing to whoever would. It might have been a trial, because when you look at the letter, it's dated last year and everything. But surely they didn't expect to get any evidence from them. I mean, while it's increasingly becoming a problem, and I attest that a lot of our journalists are revealing their sources so easily and giving out names of their sources so easily, but that was not coming to happen, either nation or whatever, to allow the journalists to go and do that would be the least. I mean, and you can read quite a number of cases where journalists have literally died with their sources in their hearts. I mean, the Westgate scandals, the whatever, quite a number. So that was not going to happen. That was a miscalculation, a very big miscalculation on the part of whoever thought about it that way, in a hurry to write such a letter. Because, professionally, once, and this has happened, I can tell you, if you look at even national cohesion and integration cases, most of the cases, the hate speech cases, they have tried that approach, and it has failed miserably. Right. To try to get journalists to testify against, because they pick a lot of clips from media which they claim to be hate speech. But if you look at the Electronic Evidence Act and what it says about how do you prove that a case, to use a clip from a TV station to go and charge somebody, is so tedious and long that many times the courts are throwing these things on technicalities. Right. So I don't know, and DCI, is part of that the multi-agency team that the government puts together to be helping in arresting hate speech. And now there's the DCI, there's the DPP, there's the judiciary. They belong to that team, and some of these things have been discussed many times. The challenges of trying to get evidence through journalists or media to go and charge. So I don't know how that misstep happened.
I mean, if indeed they wanted help in investigations, all they needed to do was log on to our NTV YouTube page and watch the full length of the interview. I mean, it beats sense, Macharia, that they would ask for journalists to go in and help in investigations.
That was one of the clumsiest things I've ever seen in this country. Summoning on the Larry Madowo, and the nation did the good thing by saying they will not honor those summonses. Yeah. But there is a bigger thing here. We have warned time and time again that this state is intent on stifling all independent voices. Look at the onslaught they have on the civil society. Look at the onslaught starting on the media. These things are not incidental. They are programmed. They may be foolish. They may be not well thought out. But you can see a systematic plan to stifle all voices which try to call the governors to account.
Right.
So it is not just the opposition, it is not just political, they will go for anybody. And I think it is time, the media should have come out with a very, very strong statement rejecting this move. But let us not forget that this was just a consequence of an earlier blunder, arresting David Ndii.
In the first place.
You arrest him, you don't know why, and then you go fishing for evidence after the arrest.
Right.
As you said, they could have gone to they have had since August to review those tapes, and they are in the public domain and make their own decisions. What do you need Larry Madowo to tell you that David Ndii has not said with his own mouth?
And keeps tweeting, if anything.
You know, it's pathetic.
You've spoken of the bigger picture of meaning to stifle the media, but some critics, including Gathara, would say we've cozied up with the government enough. In fact, the famous breakfast that we went for, you were there.
I will speak on that one. Let me hear first.
You know, that we brought it upon ourselves. Well, but onto this one first.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Macharia has just said. I think this is systematic. I think there has been and there is a plan, you know, that's being rolled out slowly to essentially stifle voices, to scare people into silence. You know, and I think we should really take the Jubilee guys who are saying that Kenyatta will rule with an iron fist, that we need a benevolent dictator. We shouldn't dismiss those voices. You know, that actually seems to be the desire. Mm-hmm. I think that when the media, in a sense, what you are alluding to, has kind of brought this on itself. Because when the assault started, for example, on civil society, the media was quite complicit in it, mm-hmm. you know, and it forgot that the government isn't really your friend, you know, and that all these people who it's going after are, in the end, part of the support system for the media itself.
Yeah.
And once civil society is clamped down on, you know, and it is weakened, it means when they come for the media, then you don't have that as a plank that you can rely on people to stand up for you. I think what they did with the letter to Larry was simply to try and scare people. And it's not necessarily targeted at Nation Media Group itself. They know those are big guys, they can afford big lawyers. It's to other smaller publications, you know. It's just a warning. If you host somebody from the opposition on your show, then you might find yourself in trouble. You know? And that is the message they're trying to drive. They're just trying to ensure that people are too afraid to stand up and say things,
right.
to give a platform for voices that government doesn't want heard.
Right. Speak to that issue of cozying up to the government, which has been...
Absolutely not cozying up to the government. Going to specifically that breakfast, I think it was around May or June 2013 at State House. I was chairman of the Editors Guild. We were invited to have an engagement with the president. We had serious issues we wanted to raise about media freedom, the media laws which we were opposed to. What better forum could there be than to raise those concerns directly with the president? After all, we were not disputing that he was the president of Kenya. And whether it was Uhuru, or even if it was Raila, or anybody else, we would still have honored that invite.
Yes.
And we made it very clear in what we said. This is where we are here. We are not here to look for handouts. We're not here to eat ugali. We're not here to ask for jobs. If anybody later got asking for jobs, that was not our agenda. That was an individual speaking out of turn. Right. But we made it very clear in our whatever we said, that this is why we are here. These are the issues we want you to look at. These are the media laws that we want to have repealed or changed. There was no doubt about that.
But Macharia, I think the discomfort isn't, for me at least personally, it's not so much that you engage with government. I think it is expected, you know, that editors, media houses, etc. will engage with government officials. But I think for me it has been the reluctance of the media to actually hold the government to account, you know, whenever it missteps. And the fact that it's given the government quite a lot of leeway, You know, if you look at incidents such as Westgate and the fact that we know nothing about what came out of it, and we're not constantly talking about that. Kulbio that happened earlier this year, you know, again, all forgotten, you know, and there is no systematic way the government is being forced to pay a price every time it messes up, you know, and more importantly, when it goes after other people. You know, when it went after civil society, especially on the ICC cases and stuff, you know, there was round silence. In fact, there was complicity, I think, within the press, you know, in pushing the narratives that government wanted out there, which I think, for me, is what causes the discomfort. That if you see them over there and then you know, they seem not to be pushing government.
I think those who say we don't call the government to account probably.
But they don't read the papers?
I don't know what, I don't know which media products they look at.
Yes,
I
don't know which media they read. maybe not the Kenyan media.
Right. Oh, no.
We may not be as aggressive as they want us to be. But maybe there is no cause to be as aggressive.
They should be aggressive.
No, the thing is this. Sometimes you may look at things through rose-tinted spectacles. You may say that our job is beyond calling the government into account or putting the government to account, that our job is fighting the government and supporting the opposition, or taking a certain viewpoint.
I haven't said that.
Secondly, I find it very odd when people who are in the media say that the media is not putting the government into the account. Then you expect that they will lead by example, so that the rest of us can see what is being done.
Look at what I write.
But that's the media. So which is the media?
So the elephant is the one that is right, and everybody else is wrong. That is what you're telling us.
No, you asked me what I do, so
no, we all read the elephant. We read the elephant cartoons. But tomorrow somebody can come here from the people and say they're the only ones doing the right thing, and everybody else is wrong.
They need to demonstrate it. They need to show it. You know,
you are showing it. But no, wait a minute, Gathara. You are showing it. Is it for you to say it, or is it for your readers to say it? Because
it's for me to
this thing of crowning, this thing of saying I am the only one who is doing it. Why don't you wait for others to praise you instead of praising yourself?
Yeah, the feedback to come from your audience to actually say that.
I mean, obviously, feedback should come from your audience, and the fact that people do complain about you going to
in this case, it comes from you.
Is feedback, and when it comes from me, let me tackle that.
And we hear.
Let me address that. Let me address when it comes from me.
I am not saying we are perfect.
This idea that if you work in the media, you should keep silent when the media is wrong, is rubbish.
But it would be hypocritical of me to start hitting out at the elephant.
Why not?
Or any other paper for what they are doing. No, mine is to do what I do best. Let others do what they do best.
So according to you, the elephant is the best.
No, I'm not saying that. Again, you guys are putting words in my mouth. Did I say that?
That's what you
asked me when I do it.
The thing is,
I told you what I do.
Mark, the thing is, everybody has become a media critic, including even journalists themselves, even people who are, and everybody is pushing. Who is this media that everybody is pushing? You draw cartoons. You used to draw cartoons for Nation, for Star. You are part of the media, and you are drawing those. So that role you are playing, that media was playing.
What does that have to do with anything?
Must all media carry what you feel?
No, again, it is not about all media carry what I say.
This judgmental approach of saying how media has not done, it does not help anybody. The thing is, media is doing, you guys are talking about stopping media from engaging. And what we are complaining about nowadays is armchair journalism, journalists who don't go out, because everybody thinks when you meet a source, so those are purely professional issues. You can't be compromised without meeting anybody, or you can't be compromised. So the issue, we must encourage people to go out, look for news, these sources. It does not mean that whenever somebody goes to look for, so he must be compromised. So I have no problem whatsoever when editors go to State House if they are invited. Right? The opposition can invite. How many times are civil society inviting editors and they are going to attend those meetings? So why should the State House meeting be an issue? So let's just contextualize the issue that we have maybe a challenge in journalism that's not related to a State House visit. So we can't deny people from meeting sources simply because we feel that when they go to meet, then how? Do you want us media to be...
Not to be accused of not giving him an opportunity to finish his point,
Well, first, I started off by saying I have no problem with you going to State House and meeting government officials. You know, absolutely no problem. And that's not the issue I was discussing.
That's not the issue.
The second thing is this. If you are in the media, doesn't mean that you cannot point out the things that you're seeing going wrong in the same press. You know, I think that would be a dereliction, in fact.
These general statements of media has failed.
Actually, well, what I say is look at what I write, go and look at the specific examples that I give. You know,
in fairness,
where the media has failed.
We have also specific examples.
I mean,
we also have specific examples where media has done well, and media monitoring, media council does media content, and we are satisfied.
Yeah, well,
So
media council, I wouldn't say my best judges of how they themselves have acted.
You can say what you want, but you know you can't be the best journalist in this country today. Or elephant is the best. I mean, that's a lie.
Gathara, on the issues that you've raised, for instance, the Westgate issue, and there was, you know, the blatant, you know, the unbelievable account that was given about mattresses burning and being the reason that there was a caving in of the building. That in and of itself, even if I don't come and say this is a lie, just showing that, you know, we also think of the audience as passive. You have a mind for yourselves.
Obviously.
And you could tell that that is a lie. We've given that a platform to this particular, this minister at that point, who said that these were mattresses being burnt, showing how much this has cracks in it in terms of their account of what happened.
Right. And I'll ask you, on the terrorist incidents that we can name, all the major incidents across the world that you can name, how many do you have that a year later, 4 years later, we do not know what happened for 4 days, you know, at this place? You know, why is it that we don't have, till today, an official account? There's none.
But why can't you come that information the elephant?
We will wait to read in the
Let me finish.
Finish your point.
Please, let me finish.
Finish your point.
You know, there have been investigations. There was one that was done by John Allen Namu.
Yes.
In the immediate aftermath of it. Since then, we've had several. All of them done by foreign correspondents. You know, none being done by local media to follow up this. You know, my question, for me, it seems, I find it weird that these things happen, they happen to us, but we don't seem to be the people who follow up on them. And it's not just Westgate. What happened in Elade? What happened in Kulbio? You know, all these become these dark places that nobody talks about. They disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, I think
a bit disconcerting.
For instance, in relation to Westgate, I think all those questions which you are flagging now were flagged by the local media on what you might call a real-time basis as and when it was happening. Yes, there are still outstanding questions, whether it is Westgate or Garissa, and we do need to still follow them up.
Right.
But I think it is quite dishonest and self-righteous for somebody to come and say that it has been done by others but not local media. Where are those reports which you are talking about? A lot of them have been
foreign policy magazine, Christian Makano.
A lot of them are based on reading the local media.
On what we have done.
Actually, no. I would urge you, go read on Foreign Policy Magazine.
Okay, let's read
Christian Makano's account of what happened in Westgate.
You
know, go read it. Then tell me that he was picking out stuff from Nation.
Listen, the fact that they were in foreign magazines or foreign newspapers does not make them the truth. Because during that period, there was a lot of wrong stuff being peddled by the British tabloids and so on and so forth, focusing on the so-called...
What period are you talking about?
Westgate.
No,
all these stories about the
White Widow.
The White Widow. There were some stories
Makando's story was in 2015, 2016.
There were stories about tunnels through which the terrorists supposedly escaped. All those things were just fiction from British tabloids. If you wanted us to go that way, surely no.
I mean, surely who has spoken about that?
No, I think he's speaking to the point of foreign media.
And then you can critique it.
We have not done it according to your expectation.
You haven't actually done it. That's my point.
Have you done it?
Patrick, have you done it? And then the media have killed it. Did you do any that story for
well, I've been asking my questions. I would ask you, go to my blog, you'll find it. It's constant.
What you have done, that's media.
Go and see.
Asking questions is one thing, providing answers is another.
Perhaps I'll put this question as well.
We have all asked those questions.
Yeah. This other question in terms of following up. There were some laws that were passed on later on, sometime later, that would put somewhat limits in covering issues of terrorism because it's canvassed in the name of national national intelligence.
Those segments.
I think we
objected
to those laws, and I think
initially that was what intimidated most of our journalists.
But those were in December.
Yes, but our journalists did do their job in terms of asking the questions.
Actually, I don't feel that they did. And again,
who did?
I don't think they did. Well, I think I did, but I don't
think you did.
But
I think I did. I'm not going to make apologies because I asked it.
You see,
asking questions is one thing, providing answers is another.
Gathara, you did
Are you accusing us of not asking questions?
What I don't get is, what's your argument here?
Gathara, you did that story, those questions you asked, and you wrote a column for The Star. The Star is a Kenyan media. Which published it? So where is the problem?
Well, okay. Will you give me time? I explain.
Okay, real quick before we take this break.
Number one, I think the fact that you've got one guy writing a column does not mean that therefore we have sanitized, we have covered.
But it's a
don't have to look at it. Let me finish.
Okay.
The second thing is you find this to be a systematic thing.
Right.
And I would say this, every time, especially where KDF is involved, there seems to be quite a lot of reluctance by press to go back and question their statements. KDF statements are reported as news. They are reported as they are, as if they are true. It's the same way PSCU puts out a press release. And our media takes it and puts it there in a column as news. And it's even written there, author is PSCU. That's not how we should be reporting. I don't think that's how we should be doing it. I think we need to be a lot more skeptical about the things government tells us, especially when it comes to security incidents, when it comes to security issues that we're reporting. And I think there is a real reluctance within the press to actually go and tackle and hold people who are there to account and to ask them the difficult questions.
That's your observation.
One of the advantages Gathara has is that he has worked there. Right. He has sources there, which some of our journalists don't have. And him, being a columnist, being a cartoonist, uses his sources, will be whatever, because Gathara used to work there, he has sources, which is not easy for some of our journalists to get there. So if you have the sources and you have already done a story, you have already done a story for your column or whatever, and when all these news houses are going to editorial conferences, they always discuss and say that story has already been covered by The Star. Yeah. So, I mean,
I can tell you one thing.
In closing on this matter.
And the thing is that these are things on record. When Westgate was happening, we started raising the red flag very early at Nation. And I think, and the Standard did the same. Asking those hard questions, putting questions to the Chief of Defense Forces, the Defense Minister, and all those people, and pointing out inconsistencies and gaps in their stories. Unless somebody did not see those things, it means maybe he did not want to see. Yeah. The same thing with Garissa.
Nation had the 10 questions, and they're there. I still remember that article when the Lam thing happened, Peketoni. Nation had the 10 important questions that government must answer. And these things you are raising are there.
Well,
yeah, real quick, we need to finish on this issue.
For example, on the Westgate story, I'll give just one example about the guys who committed the attack. Lots of the reports I see, keep rewinding the government statement that all of them were killed, and their bodies supposedly given to the FBI. It takes a short ticket to go ask the FBI what they got. They actually put out a statement that they said they got 3 bodies. Where's the 4th one? Do you hear much discussion of that? Do you hear much discussion of the fact that was reported in the Toronto Star that there was one of the attackers in Westgate was being sought in Somalia? You don't hear this being discussed in our press. And when we report on the anniversary of Westgate, it's always the story of how we overcame. We have
also
recovered,
from the families.
And my thing is, again, these issues remain. And the reason why we are constantly vulnerable to these attacks is because we don't fix the problems we had before.
All right.
You know,
You
when
made your point.
policemen come out and they say we learned nothing from Westgate, you know, and there is no follow-up to this. We don't actually go and ask, how is it possible that we lost 67 people and our police learned nothing from it?
That really wasn't asked.
Actually, no, it wasn't. It was just reported.
All right.
Let's be serious.
Why
These things were asked.
All right, let's leave it at that,
These
gentlemen.
things were asked.
Gentlemen,
And they continue being asked.